Your teenager said, "Okay," to you last week in a tone that meant absolutely nothing of the sort. You kept talking. They were already gone. But kids don't stop respecting you in the big fights. They stop in the small ones. You explained yourself, calm, reasonable, patient, which is the parenting equivalent of reading terms and conditions to someone who's already clicked accept. And by the time you feel it, the real version of your authority has already left. 6 patterns, including one that starts the moment you open your mouth to explain yourself, that decide whether your kid respects your word or learns it doesn't mean anything. Number 1, the over-explanation trap. Your 12-year-old wants to know why the Wi-Fi goes off at 9. Reasonable question. You explain. Sleep science, blue light, something from a podcast you half listened to on the school run. 4 minutes in, they're watching you with the specific expression that means, "I will outlast this speech." That doesn't make sense, though. So, you explain more. Their brain's running a different calculation. If I push long enough, this continues. I just have to wait. Teens run one test on every rule. Does this hold because they mean it or because arguing got uncomfortable? The moment a boundary requires your kids sign off to survive, it has stopped being a boundary and become a debate. They've already decided they're not losing. What they're measuring underneath the question is whether you need their agreement to hold the line. Once they clock that a long enough argument moves the boundary, the argument becomes their first tool. Applied to Wi-Fi tonight, curfew this weekend, every rule in the house with a soft edge. They're 12. This is not a democracy. The podcast, with respect, is also not required. And once your kid learns they can't outlast you, they stop listening and start waiting for you to move. Number 2, the approval seeker. This one looks like good parenting. It isn't. There's a fear underneath modern parenting that doesn't get mentioned at school pickup. You don't want them to be upset with you, so you start managing their reaction instead of holding the line. After holding the line, you immediately soften it. After a disagreement ends badly, you send something warm from the other room just to check the temperature. You watch their face when they say no. Something in you deflates when it does. Here's what a 14-year-old files away with that information. Their emotional state moves based on whether I'm okay with them, which means I have something to negotiate with. Kids need parents who can survive being temporarily disliked. That sounds obvious until you're standing in your kitchen at 9 p.m. watching your kid look at you like they've announced a family relocation to rural Norway. A parent who holds a position without needing emotional sign-off says something before a single word gets spoken. This person doesn't move. Once they realize your comfort tracks theirs, they stop deferring to you and start managing you. That's a considerable amount of power to accidentally hand to someone who still leaves the milk out like refrigeration is a suggestion. The irony, the relationship usually gets warmer once you stop needing them to approve of you. Kids don't relax around people who need managing. They relax around people who are already fine. And once they realize your comfort depends on theirs, respect doesn't disappear, it just quietly gets replaced with leverage. If this feels uncomfortably accurate, you already know why you should subscribe. Number 3, the empty threat pattern. Most parents don't realize this one's happening until it's already the default. You've said every one of these, probably this week. Do that one more time and we're leaving this restaurant. You were not leaving. The food hadn't arrived. You'd been waiting 40 minutes and had crossed the path of no return somewhere around a breadbasket. Keep this up and there's no birthday party. The party's in 4 days. You'd already paid the deposit, ordered a personalized cake with their name and blue frosting currently sitting in your freezer. freezer, right next to the emergency ice cream you panic bought for the emotional aftermath. One more word and I'm taking that phone for a month. You needed that phone to locate him tomorrow morning. It was also how they got the bus home, and honestly, the only proof of life between 3 p.m. and dinner. They knew before you finished the sentence. They always do. Kids build an extremely precise read for the difference between a real consequence and a frustrated announcement, faster than most parents realize, and with better accuracy than anything they've submitted in school this year. When the consequence never shows up, kids stop responding to the rule and start running one question. How serious is this one? Their data, built up over years, usually answers, fold incoming, 90 seconds. A small consequence you'll actually follow through on carries more weight than a dramatic one that dissolves by dessert. They're tracking whether your word holds, not the size of the threat. The cake was already in the freezer. They'd done the math before you opened your mouth. Most parents think respect is about being fair. It's about whether your word survives pressure. That's the only thing they're actually measuring. Number 4, the inconsistency tax. This is the one that quietly destroys authority and looks completely reasonable while it's happening. Monday, phone's away at dinner. You announce it, you hold it. You feel briefly excellent about yourself. Wednesday, your phone's out because of work. You wave it off with a look that says, "This is obviously different." It is not obviously different. They've logged it, not consciously, not as a complaint, just quietly updating the system. They don't argue it. They don't point it out. They just adjust like tiny, emotionally intelligent lawyers. Friday has been a week. Dinner is tired. Everyone's on their phone, including, spiritually, the dog. Their brain isn't logging, "Dad had a rough week." It's logging something far more useful. The rule applies when they feel like enforcing it. Once a rule gets attached to your state of mind instead of being a fixed standard, it becomes a forecast. They read your energy at the front door the way they check the weather, figuring out conditions before deciding what to attempt tonight. Consistency doesn't mean perfect. It means the same answer on Friday you gave on Monday. Tired or not, convenient or not. That's the difference between an expectation they internalize and a preference they route around. Every inconsistency is a data point, and at this point, their data set is more complete than yours. Once they realize your rules depend on your mood, they stop following them and start timing them. And once they can predict you, they stop respecting the rule. Number 5, the negotiating table. The next one is where most parents hand over control completely and call it good communication. They don't want to go to the family thing on Sunday. You explain why it matters. They offer a counter. You acknowledge their point. They sense movement and push further. You adjust again. 20 minutes later, a compromise nobody wanted, and they walk away having filed something specific. Every limit is where the conversation starts. There's a version of collaborative parenting that genuinely works. This isn't it. Some decisions belong in conversation. Chores, weekend plans. This isn't one of them. Some belong to you. And the job is knowing which is which before the pressure starts, not while you're already mid-compromise. The clearest signal that authority has quietly transferred: you can no longer hold a no without triggering a formal appeal process, complete with precedent, supporting evidence, 3 character witnesses, and a closing argument that somehow circles back to something you said at a barbecue in 2019, which means your authority now depends on winning an argument your kid has already decided you're gonna lose. Every time you negotiate a boundary that wasn't negotiable, you don't just lose that moment. You reset where authority lives. When they're 16 and the stakes are real, you need the word to land clean. That starts in the ones that feel small. Number 6, what they're actually tracking. Your teenager's keeping score on your word, specifically whether it means something or whether it's the opening position in a conversation they've been quietly trained to outlast. The verdict that builds across hundreds of ordinary evenings has almost nothing to do with how fair you've been or how much you love them. The question running underneath everything: can this person be counted on? That moment you thought was just about Wi-Fi? That was a test. They already had the result. The research genuinely surprises most parents. Teens with warm, consistently firm parents show lower anxiety, stronger self-regulation, and closer relationships. Because teenagers, despite every available signal to the contrary, do not actually want to be running the household. They step into that role when nobody holds it with conviction. When you hold a limit calmly, without explaining yourself into the ground, without texting an apology from the next room, something clicks into place. There is a floor here. There is an adult in this house who means what they say. This week, pick one thing you can actually hold when they push back. Something small. I hear you. This one isn't changing. No follow-up explanation. No apology backing out through the door. They'll tell their friends you're unreasonable. They'll roll their eyes with genuine athletic commitment. They'll fire off a text about how completely unhinged your rules are, using the full dramatic vocabulary as someone who has never once paid a bill. And somewhere underneath all that, something settles. Even if they'd never admit it, something they won't be able to name until they're holding a line with their own kid one day and realizing they know exactly how to do this. They didn't learn it when you explained. They learned it when your word held, even when it would have been easier not to.